Truth Seeker and/or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and/or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the Truth Seeker podcast.
Gargoyles, psychics, everything's ungodly. Dark savage.
Streaming live at truthseeker.com.
She's not a Christian.
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark sided stuff.
And now, your host, Truth Seeker.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm your host, Truth Seeker. This is the Truth Seeker podcast, and I'm excited to be with you guys today, enjoying this beautiful weather, this sacred space. We're a little bit behind going live on this show because my internet service provider was acting up, so I didn't think we were going to be able to do it, and finally at the last minute we were able to get some signal. So yeah, excited to be here with you guys to do this show. We're going to be covering some good topics, always covering all things spiritual, dealing with spirituality, the astral realms, and dealing with the other side. So I think this show is going to be the first one that I've actually done where we talk about near-death experiences. I think we've maybe just touched on them a little bit, maybe in every show, but to really go in depth with someone who's had multiple near-death experiences. So this should be really good, man. Want to give a quick shout out to everybody holding us down in the chat room live on YouTube, everybody listening to this re-upload on all the podcasting platforms as well. Want to give a quick shout out to everybody who is supporting my work on Patreon. I would not be able to do this without your help, without your support. So thank you so much for believing in me and what I bring to the table. You guys make this possible. So thank you. Quick shout out to the newest patrons we have within the last week or two. A bunch of people. Quick shout out to Hopeful Academy, Brandon Chase, Christy Lee. What's up, Christy? Luke, Mathis Legardian, Ed Crow, Jackie Williams, and Kalina Patterson. Thank you guys for believing in my work and supporting via Patreon. If you want to do that, head on over to patreon.com/truthseeker. There you get access to extra interviews, my full discography of music, which is 10 plus albums. Just released a new album. It is available there as well. You also get access to our Thursday nights School of the Mystics is something that we do, which is like the community aspect of the podcast. So that's where we kind of get to know one another and really put into practice a lot of the things that we're talking about on the show. So about the different meditation techniques and studying a lot of this different stuff and really just bringing everything to the table. We've been doing a course. The course is basic prophetic training, and that is available on the Patreon as well. We're going to be starting up A Course in Miracles this week. So if you want to get in on that, make sure that you join the School of the Mystics over at patreon.com/truthseeker. So thank you guys again from the bottom of my heart. Couldn't do it without you. Awesome. So we're going to jump right into today's interview, today's discussion. We have Robert Kopecki. Robert, welcome to the show, brother. How are you?
Thanks very much, Derek. I'm all right. It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Definitely, man. So we talk about near-death experiences, and I think that there's a lot of people who have claimed to have them, and it changed their life and found their calling and things like that. You've had multiple near-death experiences. I don't know if you want to tie them all in together, or maybe start with the first one. That would be a great place to start. What happened, and what did you get from?
I can run through them kind of quick and find a way to sort of tie them together. But needless to say, don't follow my example. One thing I can tell people. This took me about 15 years or so. They were spread out. And, near-death experiences come as particular motifs. Some people walk through the tunnel and see the light, and they come to a field and they meet their relatives and stuff. That particular one did not happen for me. But I did have three sort of classic motifs: an out-of-body experience, a life review, and a being forced back into this life kind of thing. So my first one, just to jump into it, I was living in Los Angeles, and I was art directing and illustrating and all the kind of stuff that I've done as a career, aside from writing these books. And I got in a single car accident where I glanced off an oddly parked car while I was fussing with the sound equipment in my car, and drove straight into a telephone pole. And the next instant, I found myself at the top of the telephone pole, like next to the street light. It was dusk, and there was a moth flying around the street light and stuff. And I looked down, and there was steam roiling out of the crashed car, and this body kind of hanging out of the window. I could look over the hedges into people's yards and stuff in some familiar neighborhood that I was in, and see lights going on and people running out to see what the crash was and stuff. And then I witnessed the ambulance pull up and then load me into the ambulance and take me away, kind of thing. At that time, I was not aware or conscious of having a body at all. I felt liberated. I felt, as many near-death experiencers would tell you, most of the time in their experiences, they feel like they're kind of released from the bondage of material selfness, and just kind of expanding into a greater sort of matrix of loving reality, so to speak.
That sounds good.
Love, right? You're folded into the love kind. That's the sensation that I had in all three of them. And that's where I come to my idea of heaven. Anyway, this one was a little bit more heavenly than particularly my last one. I was kind of shepherded off to a place that was like a park or like a pastoral setting, and underwent this kind of interview, almost like a job interview or something. I don't remember exactly who it was with. And when I recount these stories, I try not to go anywhere that I don't remember,
Yeah, good.
I've had more realizations about them over the years. They're meaningful to me, but I don't feel like I have enough faith in the mechanisms of memory, so they tend to be kind of self-enhancing and stuff like that. So I just try to stick exactly to the memory as I had it a couple of days afterwards. I didn't awake from this experience, which I don't remember exactly how it ended, but with this kind of interview sort of thing. I woke about 20 hours later in a hospital, and I had plastic surgery, and my head was all wrapped up in a bandage. And probably the notable aspect about this experience is that a couple of weeks later, I went back to the location where the accident had happened. And I walked around on the ground and looked behind those hedges and stuff and saw everything the way that I had seen it from up on top of the telephone pole. So I confirmed that for myself. That was about all that I really had in terms of interacting with people about this. At the time, back in the mid-'80s, near-death experiences were not very popular. There was not a lot of talk about them, and so I just kind of went on with my material life, so to speak. That was my first one.
Wow, that's pretty profound. So, so you sent me your new book. The book is How to Get to Heaven, without really dying.
That's the important part, right?
Yeah, that's the important part. So you've already done that. You come back with a message. I think the majority of people who cross over, they come back with some type of message, whether it's don't fear, you're going to be greeted, you're going to be loved, some type of message of hope. Some people experience some demonic sounding stuff, or some torture, hell, demons, things like that. You talk about some of the other experiences that you've had with the near-death experiences. Were any of them like that at all?
Well, my third one had little elements of that, but the thing that I find interesting, because all of this happened for me a few years after my third one. I never got into the near-death experience thing as a lifestyle at all during those intervening years. It wasn't until sometime afterwards when I had a different kind of a death. I had kind of an ego death, and I changed paths completely. I took off on a spiritual path in my life. I started a meditation practice, and I became fascinated with all this old scripture and philosophy and stuff like that I'd never been interested in before. And that's when it all kind of came together for me. But in looking at my three experiences, I suppose that, one might have profoundly changed me like it does with a lot of near-death experiencers. But like I said, I just kind of suppressed it and moved on into my life. And then the second one was unlike the first one completely. And by the third one being completely unlike either of the other two, then a few years later, about 10 years ago or so, I started wondering, why are these all so different? And since I put my first book out, How to Survive Life and Death, in 2014, I've been part of this community of near-death experiencers, kind of whether I wanted to be or not. I hadn't expected it at all. But I have heard hundreds of stories, and I've shared time with people that have had near-death experiences. And we all do have certain things in common that I relate to heaven. But every one of our experiences, even though they might be similar in some ways, is unique, and it's like custom made. And so my idea of it, my feeling about it, is that we are creating karma in every instant. And that has to do with my second near-death experience, which I can tell you about how that fits in.
I can just think of the idea of creating our karma and then having to deal with it on the other side. Is that kind of where you're going to go with it?
Yeah, it was a life review. It's what's called a life review. And I had traveled extensively with my first wife to a bunch of spiritual places around the world. And then I basically left our marriage and I moved to New York City, and I was doing very well professionally, but I was living the total nocturnal downtown lifestyle, just very self-destructive. I suppose in part because of the first near-death experience, I'd been thrown into this kind of quandary about life. I was never feeling really comfortable anywhere. And so I was looking for some relief, really. I ended up having essentially a drug overdose was the cause. It was just a lifestyle cascading toxic experiences that all piled up on me. And I fell out on the floor of my apartment. I felt kind of paralyzed from the neck down. I could not move. The room filled in. This time I didn't go anywhere, but it kind of came to me. The room filled in with this brilliant white cloud, like you'd see out the window of a jet when you're flying up through the sky. And again, I didn't feel really alone. I hadn't felt really alone in the first one. I was kind of shepherded off in the first one. This time I was directed to look into this cloud, and a screen opened up. It was not like a movie screen, but kind of like a box of experience, so to speak, and started to show me these scenes from my life. Not the greatest hits, but these kind of pivotal moments when I had not been present, when I hadn't realized that I was building my karma or creating my karma, the cause and effect of my life in every moment. This moment never changes, no matter how old we are. This is where we experience life, right? In the eternal moments. Yep. And so presence, after the lesson of perspective from my out-of-body one, the lesson of presence is what this is about. And about the fact that we're always living in these boxes of time, that we're able to reach in and make things happen in our life. Now is the only time we make things happen, So we're creating our karma all the time. And in a way, we're creating not just our near-death experiences or what happens in the next life, but we're creating what we experience in this life all the time through cause and effect.
That's interesting. I'm very intrigued by that, and I've been dealing with a lot of death themes lately. I had a cousin just passed away, most likely from an overdose. We really haven't heard for sure, but I was asked to come speak at his memorial service and stuff. And then my grandmother, who's alive, has been diagnosed with liver disease, and she was given like a month to live, and she asked me to speak at her eulogy and to lead it. And these are weird feelings. I've never been asked that before, especially from someone you love. I have friends and stuff who do this for strangers all the time, but when it's someone close to you, it makes it a little bit more real. How do we send this person off? Do we ignore this concept of death? Do we try to give some solace in what is to happen? Quite frankly, I've studied the religious text about what is said to happen. I think it's a little vague, even biblically. Like, there's some cool stuff in there, but I think it's still a little vague until you really experience it and what the energy is and what, we're not going to be as these bodies, which a lot of people try to paint that type of picture. So, and people don't want to give up memories and give up relationships and things like that, when we cross over. So I've been contemplating this a lot. But you're talking about going to that side and bringing back knowledge, wisdom, understanding about your life path. What are the true things? Like, the Bible talks a lot about these things of eternal value, and there's some stuff that you can do on earth that you can kind of take with you to the other side, or what you're going to be known for, essentially, right? How does that kind of fit into what you're talking about? I know we have the power within the now moment, but what are some of the things that maybe have that lasting value that's going to echo through eternity?
Well, you're always creating your life. Obviously, you're always creating this life, and though you're not thinking about it, you may very well be creating your next life too, as is indicated by the different kinds of near-death experiences that there are. Yeah. The one big lesson that I bring back, that all near-death experiencers do, is that this is not it, right? Yeah. Life goes on. We were alive before we were born, I believe, and we're alive after we die. We transition from this mode, from this vehicle, and so we are transdimensional. And when you are experiencing these feelings around the deaths in your life, in this life, that's because you're transdimensional, and you are realizing this kind of bubble, this kind of sacred bubble that we begin to occupy when we are showing up for the people in our life that we love as they make that passage. When you're in a room when a baby is born, or if you're in a room when a person dies, there is something tangible that is going on in that atmosphere. It's not like the rest of your life all the time. Yeah. That eternal moment is precious and sacred. And you have to show up for that, right? That's like in my second near-death experience, I had these things happen where I hadn't been present for them, where I had maybe let people down, or I'd missed an opportunity, or created some bad karma for myself or something. And when you are showing up for the people in your life the way that you are fulfilling those moments of opportunity in your life and answering that kind of eternal call. We're all here for each other for some reason. It's to fill in these parts of ourselves somehow. And it's all part of a big cycle. Hopefully somebody's going to show up for you when you pass on too, right? And so we need not fear about there being life after death. I'm quite positive that there is. I'm here to tell you that. But at the same time, don't ask me to prove it right now. It's not something that anybody in human form really wants to experience because of our instincts to live.
You can't, there's people who are trying to experience it now. We can talk about that here in a little bit, but I wanted to bring up this notion. I'm really big into like a lot of the biblical texts as they are, and then a lot of the stuff that's taken out of the canon, like some of the stuff that the early church believed in. There's a book called The Apocalypse of Peter, which talks about when you die, essentially the demons or the destruction and the karma that you've built up for yourself on the earth, the bad things that you've done to people, the hurtful things, that for a time, those spirits will be loose to torment you on the other side. And it goes into like descriptive detail about rape and killings and murders and beatings and stuff like that. If that, and I'm not saying that that's what happens. I just know that was in the Apocalypse of Peter. If that scenario exists, maybe if we believe it exists for us. If that scenario at all exists, and we definitely see bad karma, we definitely see people who have had a lifestyle of destruction, drug use, stealing, robbing, taking from people, stuff like that. Once you have this awakening, the near-death experience, can you undo that karma on this existence, kind of like right the wrongs and kind of erase that stuff? I feel like you can.
Well, yeah, definitely. And, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer that if you do bad things, you're going to go to hell. And if you do good things, you're going to go to heaven, because we don't pay for our sins. We live with them. And we live with them in whatever life we're living in.
That's paying for them right there, right?
Yeah. Now, you're talking about the what's called the Apocrypha of early Christianity, the Gnostic writers. And in the middle section of the book, the presence section, I go into some of that because if we live in the eternal now all the time, the wisdom that is present in this moment has always been present in this moment. So we can go back to things that I have, some of the samples I have in the middle of the book are the Bhagavad Gita or the Dhammapada, and I have the Gospel of Thomas, which is one of those Gnostic Gospels that I find very, very meaningful. In fact, it kind of provides the theme to this book, which is in Logion 113, Yeshua in the Gospel of Thomas says, the kingdom of heaven is spread across the earth, but men don't have eyes to see it. So this book is kind of devised to give you the eyes to see how you can build an experience of heaven. Like everybody's had a little taste of heaven in its life, right? You'll have a moment, it's a bite, it's playing with a kid or being. I
would hope, yeah.
Something that gives you this sense of heavenly transcendence. Yeah. And so that's the idea. On all these old texts, they provide us with these sort of ladders or puzzles that help us find paths to heaven that are just as contemporary in our lives right now as they ever have been. So I'm big on that kind of stuff. And needless to say, you have to live by certain principles. I mean, how does everybody behave in heaven, right? What do you think heaven's going to be? Everybody's going to be nice, right? Everybody's going to be forgiving. Everybody's going to be honest and humble and compassionate, and they're going to drop everything to help you whenever. So if you live by those principles, you are aligning yourself in this life with heaven, and you're burning off bad karma and you're creating good karma.
Is that essentially what How to Get to Heaven Without Really Dying is about, just to come back with that message? I mean, because Jesus reiterates over and over, on earth as it is in heaven, as above, so below. Like whatever the atmosphere in heaven is, like we can experience it now. We can walk in it. We can, we can do those things, walk in compassion, love, forgiveness, those things towards other people and create heaven on earth. Is that essentially what the book's getting to?
Yeah, pretty much. It's in Matthew someplace where he says that as it is in heaven, as it is on earth, so it shall be in heaven, kind of thing. So, and vice versa, essentially, so that no matter what life you're in, no matter what life you're living in, you are going to experience either these aspects of pain and difficulty and suffering, the hellish aspects of life without love, or you're going to enter into and expand into this consciousness of love, what I call divine consciousness. It penetrates and animates everything in whatever life you're in. And when you enter into that, wholeheartedly and open-heartedly, and you take part in it with these principles that are kind of guaranteed to get you to heaven much faster than doing the wrong thing is ever going. You're going to have to work it off eventually.
Yeah. That's the beautiful thing, because it's on earth. You can experience it now. A lot of people kind of put up with some of the bad stuff or the things that they don't like about themselves when they can experience it now. like in this present moment, whether we go through meditation, whatever we want to do, just to get alone, to find what you're talking about, the presence of the present moment, to be in the now. We look at Eckhart Tolle selling, he's a millionaire off of teaching people how to stay in the present moment, connected breathing, all of these things. I like to look at the scripture when it talks about, it says, peace, be still and know that I am God. So just to sit in that moment and just to reflect on that sacred energy through breathing, whatever it is. And I think that's where the power is, when we try to live outside of ourselves, or anticipation about what we have coming up on our calendar in a few weeks, or an event we're supposed to do, or the end of school, whatever it is. We tend to get on this autopilot mode and project our consciousness outside of ourselves, where we're not present to look at the grass, to smell the flowers, all of these little things that we take for granted. And we go through different stages where that, if we're conscious of it, it may be taken away from us so that we long for the present moment. Maybe we're overoccupied and we can see that, man, I got to find time to rest. I have to find time to get back to the now moment. And that I agree with you. That's what everybody is. That's the end goal, I think. Like so many people, I want to go into this a little bit, talking about like people who are on like ayahuasca ceremonies, or psilocybin magic mushroom encounters. People are having awakenings on this, and maybe we can call that near-death experiences as well. Some people feel like they die. Some people meet, very similar experiences to you and all the other people who are dealing with NDEs, where they meet their grandmother who has been dead for 10 years that they were close to, and they meet that person and they tell them, it's okay, I love you, you're doing a good job, I'm proud of you. And they get the power of that experience and bring it back into the their life, all from the now moment.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting from my first near-death experience, the out-of-body one. When you experience seeing your body and you have a sense of yourself still intact and alive, it's hard to get the genie back in the bottle in a way after that.
Yeah,
and that's going on in my life. I was never really able to look at things quite the same way. And that's why this section of the book is about the gift of perspective, is because I witness people now as these spirits, these expressions of divine consciousness, so to speak, coming through the form of their physical being. And I know that they have a life story. They have experiences that have happened to them that shade this expression that they have, and I look at you and I can kind of see the makeup of your life in a way. You look at me and you can kind of, sense the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
And we know that it's not easy to be this thing. To be in this form is difficult. And unfortunately, it goes like this and then it goes like that, right? If nobody told me I was at the, if it's all downhill from here, how come no one told me I was at the top, right? That kind of thing. There you go. Life goes up and then it goes back down. Yeah. And so if we are clinging on to the forms of this life, if we are overly obsessive and self-centered in the physicality and the materiality of life, we're going to suffer from that.
Yeah.
The relief and what's expressed by people who do ethnoeugenics and psychogenics and stuff is the release from that sense of being tethered to the physicality of life.
Yeah.
And when you experience that kind of transcendent unity with things. And that's another aspect of heaven. See, in all these different experiences of near death that I've heard, and the ones that I experienced myself, even though there were different things that happened in each, there were certain things that were consistent all the time. That was the experience of pure love, this kind of sense of radiant illumination at some place or another, this transcendent, the sense of transcendent unity that can be gained through ayahuasca or psilocybin too. And then there's some kind of karmic instruction. There's usually some kind of advice or path that you need to go on. That my third near-death experience is along those lines too, so I could kind of segue into that.
Great.
But that's what it's really all about, is identifying the fact that you are a spiritual being, that you are a transdimensional being, that you are in this form for now, and that you're here to work some things out that can only be worked out in this form and to do them in only the way that you can do them, and to show up for the life that you are creating for yourself. You know?
That's the beautiful thing, because we always want to complain about the bad stuff, and there's something we've just been exploring on this podcast with a lot of guests and stuff, and coming to terms with myself is like, you know, the bad things that have happened to us in our lives. You know, when we were going through them, I would have gave anything to come out of it. Now, when we look back at these different trials and tribulations that we've been through, some of the heartache and stuff that we've endured, I wouldn't change it for the world. There's this aspect of the contrast of how are we to be able to judge how bright and brilliant the light is if we've not experienced the uttermost parts of darkness. And it's the same way, I think, too. You're talking about this euphoria, this feeling that you felt going through the other side of love and of bliss, and that essentially that's where you are, that's who you are. How would you know that if you hadn't experienced heartache and death and loss and betrayal here on earth? And I think it all the pain, all the bad stuff, man, we have to use it for alchemy. I believe that 100%.
Yes, alchemical.
And it's all worth it. It's part of the contrast. Those who, the scripture says, those who are forgiven much love much, and those who have, you know, kind of right those wrongs and understand, look, I've been a jerk, I got to fix this, you know. And it's only through these type of experiences that we have these awakenings or realizations that we get on this path to want to change it. So that's the beauty of going through the bad stuff and it helping us see how beautiful the light is. So your third near-death experience, this was a little bit more darker.
Yeah, it was actually. I was in a small town in Arizona. I'd been snowbirding back and forth between New York City and Arizona, and I had gotten engaged again. And I was there for a Super Bowl Sunday, and after the game, I went out into a public plaza and made a phone call on a payphone, which is still a pretty long time ago that this happened.
What's that?
Yeah, and I had a guy who we sort of charitably in those days called skinheads. You know, this like great big dude with a shaved head and just kind of all the trappings of that sort of neo-Nazi sort of culture type thing. And no judgment on the guy, except for that he started to really harass me and got violent with me. And I got into an altercation with him where I kind of got the best of him, and I thought I better get out of there. Everybody around me thought that it was great that I had handled it so well, you know, so I got some sort of confirmation about dealing with this guy. But on my way home on my bicycle, I didn't realize there was a van full of these guys. They drove up alongside of me, and with like a crowbar or a tire iron or something, they hit me in the back of the head and knocked me off my bike into the curb head first. And then they stomped and kicked on me for about an hour.
What?
So in that one, that was obviously not as heavenly an experience. And I didn't go to as heavenly a place. I mean, to me, it's just really fascinating how specific these experiences are, like ultra specific dreams, kind of, that exist in a different kind of reality, like a very real, more real than most dreams, less random. I was in this kind of subterranean or almost womb-like place. Still, again, I felt completely like transcendent, unity. I just felt surrounded by love. And there were, as I remember, these kind of entities around me, these loving entities. And it was almost as though outside of the room, I had a sense of this kind of crunching and stomping and stuff that I wanted no part of. I did not want to go back. I wanted to stay where I was. But they all told me that I had not gone about things the right way, and that I had things that I needed to do, and that I had to go back. And I fought against them, but they prevailed. And they kind of like pushed me through what I recall as being this kind of a membrane, and I sort of popped through, and I was on my back on the street in this Arizona town with an emergency medical worker over me who said, "He's back." And that I realized, in that experience, I realized we all have this very specific calling. We're all creating, adding to it, making our lives whole in a way through this purpose that we're here for. Mm-hmm. So the perspective that gives you the ability to see people as human beings struggling along through this form, the presence that brings all the sort of wisdom of this eternal moment to bear, where we make our karma, and then the purpose that is your unique data package that you have to fill out and dovetail into other people's experiences. You know, I kind of see us as being these sort of energy packets of karmic and quantum information that kind of overlap each other. We meet and infuse with one another. And that's the great thing about the darkness and the light that you were talking about. I bring up Rumi, who was a Sufi, and the Sufis have this belief that if you're looking into the catastrophe of things, into the darkness, it's great, it's beautiful, it's a blessing, because you only have to turn around 180 degrees to see the light and the bliss, you know? It's right in the opposite direction. And so those experiences of darkness are what I think of as being deaths in themselves, you know? These kind of moments where you're making this passage through absolute humility, where you become teachable. That's when you expand into a new life. You're reborn. This is like a resurrection or an alchemical kind of transformation. So that was the third one, was the gift of purpose, I call it.
Which is a beautiful gift. I got to know, well, I was going to jump to this question, but I think you kind of already answered it. Christy in the chat wants to know, when he figured out he wasn't in his body anymore, did he want to go back into his body, or did he not want to go back? It sounds like you were kind of like, you wanted to stay where you were, but you were told you have to go back, right?
Yeah, in the first one, I didn't really even think about it. I was just amazed.
Yeah,
you know,
you didn't know where you were. You didn't know what was happening at first, right?
And I had this kind of entity with me that I now recognize as being my guardian angel, so to speak. This energy that sort of serves as a higher power in my life a lot of the time. The voice of reason, the good angel on my shoulder, who shepherded me off, and I didn't really even think about it until I woke up in the hospital again. In the second one, I was not very aware of that physicality at all. It was in the third one where I did not want to go back. I had a sense of what was going on in that physical realm, and it was nothing I wanted a part of anymore. And so I did not want to go back at all. But I didn't have a choice. You know, some people in their near-death experiences, they have choices, you know, whether to go back to their body or not. So I can only...
That's interesting. Do you want to go back? Let me think about it, you know. I've heard that, though. I've heard that. So here's a question I have for you. Where does God fit into all this? The creator, the life essence that animates all life, which you've talked about, because not in the fact is, does it or does she exist, but the question as far as these three experiences, are they coincidence, or did something will it to happen? Was this orchestrated for a reason, or was just this the luck of the draw, the roll of the dice? Do you feel like God or consciousness, the universe, orchestrated this for you to be on your life path, to write this book, and to help other people overcome some pitfalls and learn how to overcome some things that they don't have to actually die to go to the other realm to get the answers?
Yeah, I mean, like maybe 7 years ago or so, I had no idea I was going to be an author, much less a twice published two book. I could never have imagined that. But I went through this situation in my life where everything stopped working for me. I actually found a little place on the upper Delaware River where I literally sat on a rock by the river for kind of years and did a lot of meditation and stuff. And I had this sort of ego death, where all the trappings, all the constructions of my external life and expectations and everything I thought I was supposed to be, it just failed. It just ended for me. And I had this kind of transformative thing enter into me and started to want to express it. And that's where the three experiences coalesced in me. And I realized that this was an expression of my purpose, and that I am part of this vast, invisible machinery. When we talk about technology, about the kind of technology that you can use, these platforms for putting your show out and stuff like that, as we were just before the show, the greatest technology of all is what we call spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritual technology is incredible. And I think of God as definitely being. Now, he, she, it, I call that animating force what the Hindus might call Brahman, or what Christians might call the Holy Father. I call that divine consciousness. Now, whether that's God or vice versa, I'm not sure, but I didn't experience a personage that is significant of being a God force. I experienced
Jesus or anything like that, a man in robes that has the personification. No,
I experienced this sense of complete transcendent unity, being enfolded into a field of love, divine consciousness, being part of a larger mind. My mind losing its boundaries and expanding into a larger mind that I was part of. And that was my experience of God. And that in many ways is my experience of heaven too. And what I try to impart, through these experiences and lessons in the book is how to get there without really dying. But you do have to really die to go to heaven. You know that. Everybody knows that. But it may just be an ego death that you have to experience.
Yeah.
Release of all these false expectations and forms of this world that enables you to reach that place of transcendence, however that comes to you.
I mean, Jesus talks about being born again.
Absolutely.
And to be born again, you have to die. You have to die. In the scriptures, we're talking about the ego death. The scriptures call it the flesh, the fleshly nature, that nature that has ill will towards other. It's self-serving. It's, me, myself, and I. What can I do to survive? It's like overcoming that. And it's the same thing as the ego. I think the words are essentially interchangeable. So I think the whole message is throughout the Bible. It's throughout the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita. Mm-hmm. Every religion talks about it. I think they're all essentially telling the same story.
And the resurrection, that to me, is a metaphysical transformation, is what you're talking about. The cross is the temporal plane, right? The intersection of the temporal plane with the transcendent unification movement towards heaven, kind of thing, right? And that's what everybody hopefully experiences, to find their authentic self and to come into wholeness and to experience God in their life and to be able to bring heaven onto this earth, so to speak.
Yep. That's our life purpose. I believe that's my life purpose. And I think a lot of people listening as well, wanted to talk to you as well, because like a lot of people talk about when they go to the other side, when they cross over and they come back, maybe because it's dealing with spirituality. You mentioned the spiritual technology. I think that everything that we have, such as Facebook, the internet, all of this stuff is mimicking the spiritual technology, the global brain. We're all connected. Facebook makes us all connected, our cell phone, these type of things. Did you experience heightened senses of awareness? Did you experience psychic abilities, ESP, being able to know when someone was going to call, before they even called you? Anything like that when you came back? Were you more susceptible to those abilities?
Yeah, definitely more open to the synchronicities.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask you, synchronicities as well.
When you open yourself up to that, when you get your intellect and expectations and the physical aspect of yourself out of the way, you start to notice that these things are happening all the time. That was one of the great lessons of my second presence experience, was these were moments that I had not been aware of what I was actually witnessing. I had not been a witness to this kind of marvelous sort of interweaving of these threads of my life, Now I am much more often. And I have so much faith in that I see it all the time. It's happening I could tell you how I met my wife, but it's crazy. It's mind-blowing.
Synchronicity.
It's like that,
We listen to a lot of teachers. We listen to, there's tons of teachers and who would tell you what synchronicity is. And they say, pay attention to the information that comes through. And that sounds good. Sometimes it works that way. The synchronicity is something you should look into. It's the spirit realm letting you know to go down this path. Sometimes the information is silly. It's you look at a picture of a duck and your significant other says, hey, did you see that duck the other day? And you open a book that with a picture of a duck. You know, little small things like that. I think it's essentially God's breadcrumbs letting us know that we're on the right path. What do you think is the most significant part of synchronicities and having them, these reoccurring themes or memes essentially happen in your life?
I think that when you're aligned to this kind of idea of what heaven is by living with certain principles, you bring a certain awareness and open-heartedness to bear, that then it is shown to you. It's not a projection of your own ideas about things, where your ego or your intellect starts to move into something and think, I should be manifesting that for myself right now. I'm going to summon this up from the ether for myself, that kind of thing. That's not the way it works, because you're projecting this sort of aspect of being human on stuff. It is all there already. And getting yourself out of the way and opening up and kind of like connecting transdimensionally through your heart to these things and experiencing them, then you'll start to see the real synchronicities at work in your life, I think. It's tricky because, people want to feel like they can kind of enter into it and work with it and make things happen, and it's going to show them when they want it to. It doesn't happen on your own schedule. It happens on God's schedule, so to speak, right? That you get these things shown to you. But
you can tune into that schedule and kind
Absolutely.
Of align yourself to that schedule, right? It doesn't work the other way around.
Right. Yeah. And by living by these principles that I talk about in the perspective part of the book, and then bringing to the sort of powers of presence to bear, that kind of in the now type Eckhart Tolle thing, in this moment, this eternal moment, and then recognizing what your life is showing you is your purpose, Who loves you? Who do you love? What are you good at? What do people ask you to do? What do you know in your heart you need to be there for? That's your purpose then.
Yeah.
And so by aligning yourself in these three ways, you begin to experience that a lot. And it really will start to open up your life in an entirely different way. Have a different experience of life then.
I think it just makes you more sensitive too. Like it literally changes your consciousness. Like,
yeah,
you could be sitting in a room with 7 other individuals in your perception of reality.
Yeah,
it gets into weird stuff sometimes. I mean, there's schizophrenics who their perception of reality is different as well. But from a near-death experience, I think it's good. I think it's good. I think if you work the energies right, if you do what you're supposed to be doing, obviously it would definitely bring about pain if you have those encounters with the spirit realm, however they come, through a near-death experience, even if it's through maybe ayahuasca or psilocybin or something, and you know what you're supposed to be doing from like a divine order to say, and you don't do it. Like, I don't know if you have any experience with that, about this inward need. Obviously, you said you spent some time as an animator, and as fun as that is, maybe that wasn't the deeper calling that what you were supposed to be doing. I was a truck driver, and it killed me eventually to go to work. Not that it was bad, but I knew that I was supposed to be doing something else. Going on these journeys, having these encounters very similar to what you're talking about, and then going back to drive a truck, you're like, oh my God, I've been in between the realms. I have to manifest this. I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing, but it seems so far away. And they talk about this stuff curing depression, right? The near-death experience, the ayahuasca curing depression. On quite the contrary, it sent me into depression because I had to go back to clock in to the 9 to 5 and come back to reality. But it does ignite a fire within you. That depression can be used for good. That depression is part of the contrast, and it can be used for good. But talk about if you've had any encounters with that as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like my first 45 years of life were sort of like that. I may not have been quite doing what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about is a near-death experience, too, in a way. I talk about different kinds of dying from different stages in your life. I had a transformative near-death experience that was of a spiritual nature around 9/11. I had come back from Arizona after my third near-death experience, and I'd fit back into this commercial world of television production and stuff here in New York City. And I still was not happy. I was more successful than I'd ever been, but I wasn't fitting into my life. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing in a way. And then 9/11 happened, and I was there downtown. I lived south of 23rd Street and experienced the whole thing that day. And the thing that I experienced too, that I can never forget, was this sense, this like sixth sensory awareness of this rush, this kind of cyclonic swirl of souls that were like departing this plane kind of thing. So my experiences had opened me up to this, whether I wanted it or not.
Yeah.
And it was so powerful for me that day. I just could not deny it. And my life in many ways kind of turned around right in those couple of weeks. That was when I needed to go find a place to sit in the stillness and know God myself, right? That was when I began my sort of metaphysical, the desire to metaphysically transcend the illusion of separateness that I've experienced my whole life. And I ended up in this kind of study and this meditational approach to things that enabled me to kind of pass through into the acceptance of the real spiritual nature of life, and everything changed for me then. So we have those kind of near-death experiences that aren't of the variety where something tragic happens to you, other than you just experience the sixth sensory aspect of transformation. You know what I mean?
In your book, you call it divine consciousness, right? And are we in and out of that? Like, I think I'm in it now. You know what I'm saying? But I've been there. I've been out of it. Depression doesn't seem possible. Try to get in that now moment. It comes back. And it is a roller coaster ride. But is that something that everybody can experience without having to die, or without? I mean, essentially, I guess the goal is to really, you know, I think if it calls you, especially with like psychedelics and stuff. But to really be able to bring back the information and save you the trip and say, look, you don't have to do that. This is what it's going to tell you. Everything you've been talking about, Eckhart Tolle, you know, these guys, it's the same thing. It's not a different message. The message is the same. The way it speaks to you. We talk about deep states of meditation. I think that's a practice we should all do, but it's the same message. The life review, the now moment, quit projecting yourself outside of yourself, be present with your family and the people who need you the most, these type of things. So it's something that everybody can attain without, I wish I had a near-death experience, or I wish I had magic mushrooms in my backyard or something like that, right? Yeah, well, the use of psychogenics is very valuable to a lot of people, and it's very valuable therapeutically too, to people who have like terminal diagnoses and stuff like that, because it detaches you from this purely physical plane of being, and you start to experience that sense of transcendent unity, you know? So it's really important that way. For me, meditation had a lot to do with it. Because going in and out of divine consciousness is something that we all experience all the time, where you're just completely chill with it and you're feeling it and it's flowing. And then the next thing you know, your rent is due, or, you know, you can't pay the bill.
Can't pay the bill, or your car gets towed or something like that. And bang, suddenly you're right back
in the same day.
Same
day, yeah.
And you fall under the auspices of this voice in your head that is kind of scolding and judgmental and comparative, and is constantly negative, pretty negative, right? It's like the evil angel, the devil on your shoulder, sort of thing. And when you sit in meditation, it does a couple things for you. One is that it enables you to objectify that nasty voice in your head. I call him Bad Bob. You know, that's, I hear him, and I know that if he were a person outside of me, I wouldn't like him very much. Yeah. Because he's trying to control my life in a pretty negative way. And I respect that. That's some kind of old instinct that I have that's supposed to protect me from a saber-toothed tiger or something, even though I don't get it anymore. Then I can, like we said earlier, you look into the darkness. If you turn around, the light is just in the other direction. Yep. I can turn from that and I can move to this place inside of my mind while I'm meditating where there's peace and reason. And I can consciously move that way. And it allows me to objectify my authentic self, what I call my authentic self that's grounded in divine consciousness, from the voice of my ego that's grounded in the physicality and materiality of this life. Right? And the other thing that meditation does for you then is that it opens up that sense of unity with all things.
Yep.
The interconnectedness and the interdependence of everything that the Buddha taught about. So those are the two ways that meditation can help you really get in touch, align yourself to divine consciousness, and stay there as much as possible.
Yeah, I think it becomes second nature. You know, I think the more that we experience it, we know when we're out of it, and we know how to kind of get back in line because we've been out of line before. We've been in and out, so we get used to it. Don't do this. If I respond with hatred and bitterness, it may send me on like a downward spiral. We learn to kind of walk what I like to call, I love to call the narrow road. I think that's what the scriptures are talking about, of this perfect divine will, not too far on the left, not too far on the right, but just this perfect narrow road, which can be hard to attain. Sometimes we get off a little bit, and sometimes if we get off just a little, we'll be off that path even on down the road. But it's about finding that balance and everything. And I think with practice, you know, I think consistency, being persistent with it, and learning is a big thing. You learn from podcasts, you learn from other people's experiences, you learn from your own failures and shortcomings. You have to be a student of life. You have to learn from everything and see what's working for Robert, what's working for Truth Seeker, what's working for so-and-so, and then apply it. See if it works for you. I mean, we're talking about these cliches, and the funny thing is, like, there's a bunch of cliches in the near-death experience. And I was going to say that earlier, like a white light, I seen this, I was asked, do I want to go back? I left my body, looked down. They're cliches for a reason, because they're real and other people are experiencing very similar things, and therefore the outcome is very similar. So the message that we're sent back with, which is of love, peace, kindness, understanding, like those are the things that have lasting value, even within the Bible, which I'm a student of the scriptures, and it's just, it reiterates over and over and over. These things are forever. These things are going to last when the other things are going to be burned away by adversity, and like they're not going to last. They're not going to get us anywhere. So I really think that with practice comes perfection as well with that. And it's okay to mess up. It's okay to get off. There's people listening right now, they wish that they could be there, but you know, they were there before. I've been there. I've done interviews where I'm asking, how do I get it back? You know, I've been there, man. And it's part of the learning process. It's part of the journey. But I mean, what are just some techniques that you talk about in the book? I know we're talking about meditation. We're talking about walking in love in every aspect, seeing other people as an extension of yourself. But what's something that's kind of big that will help us stay in that present moment and treat others how we want to be treated, essentially, right? Well,
the embrace of imperfection is part of. We had to embrace the imperfection of our internet connection just a few minutes ago, and that was like
both of us.
That was like a
first, then you.
Yeah, for things, right? You know, but you mentioned a couple of them. You can't think your way into divine consciousness lots of times as a human being struggling to get by in this world. You have to lots of times act your way into it. So if you're consciously being of a forgiving nature, or for example, if you just devote yourself to being as kind to everybody as you can be for a day, without kindness being sarcasm or gossiping, but real sincere kindness to people, your life will transform. It will open up in a way that you may not have ever experienced, and you'll discover this kind of fabric of kindness at work in the world that is truly awesome. if you notice, you have to be a little vigilant when you're on this narrow path that you're talking about, right? If you notice that there's comparison and judgment and stuff coming into your thinking, then you have to take that golden moment and say, wait a minute, stop and smell the roses, right? Ground yourself in this present moment, recognize that everything that changes is not real and everything that doesn't change is real. And hold on to that sense of oneness with everything. And then those petty little concerns or judgments or comparisons you have about others fade away. They disappear, and you can realize your kind of unity with everybody and start to recognize everybody as being really beautiful in their own way. And even where you are, you might be like at a bus stop or something. And suddenly you're able to look at that world in a different way that brings that kind of heavenly radiance out through it, and transforms that instant, that moment of presence into a heavenly experience.
Yep. And I think, like I said, I go back to the Bible all the time. This is what I've studied. And it talks about having that peace that surpasses all understanding, that inner peace and that inner knowing where if we look at the situation and circumstance, you should be freaking out right now. You should be upset. You should be bitter. You should be mad. But how do you have this peace? And it's the inward knowing of Jesus talks about my peace I give to you, not as the world gives. No man gave it to you, so they can't take it from you. Don't let anything take your peace, and you're able to weather every storm. When you wake up on the boat, much like Peter and the disciples woke up on the boat, and they're in the midst of a storm, they panicking, where's Jesus or whatever. They get up and they're able to speak to the winds and the waves and tell them to be still and be silent and not to be moved by every situation, every circumstance. You're freaking out, panicking, or you're doing good until the circumstance comes. You have to learn what to do when the circumstance comes. I mean, and I think they're practical tests. I think we're talking about it being set up by a divine order. I really do think that God, whatever, is watching out for us, and we're taking these tests. Like we have to pass them. We learn. I mean, they're going to come up later as a pop quiz once we pass them. But if you keep responding the same way, you're failing. But when you respond with love and peace and understanding, then I think we're really speaking the language of heaven, and we move on to bigger things. I think we have to be trusted with some of these precious jewels and things like a podcast, like a book deal. You know what I'm saying? Things like that you have to go through these different levels. And I think it's for everybody. I don't think that we're special and it's just us or whatever. What's beautiful about all of this stuff, and I love to talk to people about this, is that it's applicable for everyone. Yeah. It's not that I was contacted and the angels came to me. No, they come to you too. Even through this podcast, they're coming to you through the conversation. That's the power of it.
And faith is not a well-lit place, right? It just isn't. When you're on those troubled seas, the metaphysical metaphor of that, be still and know that I am. And what happens is the seas become placid. And not only that, you can walk on the water. The depth of all that troubled emotion and stuff becomes a foundation for you to live on, actually, So these beautiful, rich messages of what's called non-ordinary reality, but is actually ordinary, I think. Einstein said that you can live two ways. One is believing that nothing is miraculous, and the other is believing that everything is miraculous. And I'll get people who don't believe in anything that I'm talking about, don't believe in any of my experiences, and that's fine for people to be skeptical. I understand the invasion of intellect into the spiritual. I know all about that. And I like to point out to them that we're on a planet in outer space, and that's where the whole thing starts. So if that's not magical and wild enough for you, for all of this beauty to grow out of from that place, I don't think anything's going to do it for you. You've got to bust open your heart and experience that I am, be still and know that I am.
go back to that place of peace. I like the fact too. We're talking about walking on the water. I used to remember going swimming. We'd go out into the middle of the lake and we'd go swimming. We'd be in a boat. We'd jump out, and I was always scared. Like, how deep is this water? 100 feet deep? 10 foot deep, 5 foot. I could swim in 5 foot water. I can't. And people have this fear that they can't swim in deeper water. And we look at Peter walking on water, which is symbolic of us. He steps out of the boat, and it doesn't matter if that water's 3 foot or 30 foot, or 1,000 feet.
Until fear overtakes him.
And then you drown. But as you're walking in faith, if you're walking in water, it like faith and belief, the ebb and flow of it will, like water, change to and wrap around whatever situation you're in. We're talking about those unexpected bills that come up, and I need to that same faith and that same knowing, the same knowing is the same knowing that's going to be there when you have to pay $100 bill, or your $1,000 a month insurance or house note, whatever the case is. Like, it's the same faith, it's the same knowing that you're connected and you're protected. That's brought you to it is going to bring you through it. It's the same faith, and that's the beauty of it. Like, the principles don't change. You know what I'm saying? We go deeper in our revelation of this grace, of this love, and this that we can embrace. Thank God it's tangible and not just a theory or whatever the case is, but it's tangible to the now moment. I really believe that. Look, before we go, I wanted to ask you one more question about the book. Something very near and dear to, I think, a lot of our hearts, but you talk about animals and their special role in our life, and that they may be a little bit smarter, a little bit more connected than a lot of people give them credit for. I want to hear a little bit about that before we go.
We got kicked out of the garden, right? They didn't.
Yeah.
And we did because we assumed ourselves to be like God, to have this idea of what's right and what's wrong, that we know better and that kind of thing. If you think about divine consciousness as I've been talking about it, animals are connected like directly into that. And anybody who pets a dog, or has a cat in their lap or something knows what I'm talking about. The fact is that animals, through their physical forms, experience a reality that we cannot even imagine. They are heirs to an intelligence that allows them to not go to school or have to wear clothes.
Yeah.
Something that we've got to worry about all the time. So in many ways, they're ahead of us on the scale, I think. They're closer to God in a lot of ways. But we are uniquely made for our role as being stewards of this, as being able to work with things in a way that no other creature can. And that's the thing that happens with us. We become caught up in the physical demands of this life, and that one dimension suddenly hems us in. We begin to think that animals are accessories. We begin to think that bills and fame and things like that are what's really important. But in fact, we are all extra-dimensional beings. That's what I'm trying to talk about. It's a bigger picture than all of that. So what we are really is greater than what we generally think we are. And when we align ourselves with animals more in that way, we become part of this life of the world. And then we can start to actually bring heaven back to this earth. I mean, it's a pretty heavenly earth to start with.
Yeah, true.
See where we're going wrong. Everybody is very aware of where we're going wrong, right? And part of it is losing our animal brothers and sisters at such a high rate. So if we realize that we're greater than we are, is my point. That we're trans-dimensional beings, really, then we can escape the illusion that we're trapped in this kind of physicality and begin to experience a whole different way to live. That I relate to being in heaven, that I relate to going to heaven.
100%. On earth as it is in heaven. We can experience it now in the now moment, and bring the now moment with us in every situation. Robert Kopecki, thank you for coming on the podcast. We have your book here, How to Get to Heaven Without Really Dying. Make sure you guys go out and pick up this book. I know you can get it at like everywhere books are sold, but let them know the best place to pick up the book and where they can check out your work as well.
Well, I've got a blog, robertkopecky.blogspot.com, that a lot of people go to, where I post essays and stuff. And I've got a website that's robertkopecky.com. I write for Gaia.com. I write for The Mindful Word. Otherwise, you can go to my publisher, Llewellyn Worldwide. They have it too, but maybe go to your local mom and pop bookstore, because that's where I like to buy books, and ask for it if they don't have it there, and patronize those people that bring that kind of knowledge to you close to home.
Wow, that's the first time I've heard that publishing company name spoken. I've always called it Llewellyn for years. I've been reading their books since I was 13 years old. Llewellyn. Wow, the correct pronunciation. You guys make sure you go check out his book. It's really good stuff. And if you really enjoyed this podcast, if you would like to see him on, again, let us know. I know he's got a lot more stuff to talk about. We can even go into his first book as well. I want to talk to you a little bit more about some of these special abilities and psychic type experiences as well. So I'd love to have you back on. Robert, thanks for coming on, and we'll have to do it again soon.
Thank you, Derek. It's really been a great pleasure talking with you. You asked great questions, and I had a really good time.
I enjoyed it, my brother. We'll see you again soon.
Blessings.
All right, bye-bye. Robert Kopecky, ladies and gentlemen. I get some really cool guests on here, man. People who've been through some stuff. And like I say, if you want to call this syncretism, if you want to call it comparative theology, you guys know, I guess I come from a Christian background, Christian perspective, but to me, everything all comes back to the same answers, right? We're having these, whether you're having a Christian experience and that's your worldview. I mean, this guy wasn't using biblical terms and languages for the most part, right? But he was. If you know the scriptures enough, I mean, that's how my mind works. I have a scripture for everything. You know what I'm saying? And there's some deep stuff within the scriptures, which is really cool. But we find ourselves having very similar encounters and experiences to people in other faiths, of people who have never even experienced our faith. I've got some people in the audience now who are signed up through Patreon. They're part of the School of the Mystics on Thursday nights, and they've never read the scriptures. But everything that I'm talking about, it's like the other way around. They're referencing other books and other works as I speak or as I share Bible knowledge or whatever the case is. They already know what I'm talking about. It's stuff that's written within their hearts. It's written upon their hearts, right? And so it's within them. It's the same encounters, the same experiences, which is really cool. That's what it's about for me. He's talking about having this awakening. A big part of my awakening and moving to these, greater levels of understanding and came when I started, instead of looking at others and finding what makes us different, finding the things that separate us, I did the opposite. I said, well, let me try studying this stuff, or even talking to people in conversation. I would do this in conversation, man. People will bring up anything religious. My mind is going, how can I debunk them and show you that my religion is right? Honestly, that's what we were taught in religion. But now in these conversations, I'm trying to build. I'm like, okay, I believe the same thing. We word it differently. I've worded it differently. It's a different perspective on the same type of concept. And that's what it's about for me. We call it comparative theology, syncretism, how we're all saying the same thing. And now, instead of trying to tear people down, I look for the good in it. I mean, we could just use Joel Osteen. I mean, he's an enemy of most of heresy hunters, the Christian heresy hunters. They're like, Joel Osteen's a false prophet, he's preaching deception and things like that, and I used to look at him that way because of the people I was involved with in many sects of Christianity, in many sects, not just one denomination or whatever. But I would listen to it and I couldn't take in anything he said because of whatever the case was, hearing having preconceived notions about him. But then now I'm able to listen to him. It's like, listen, that man's talking some good stuff. He's got some wisdom. some wisdom. Something he's saying is good, right? You know, he's a false prophet, man. He's deceiving people. What's up, Patrick? All it is. What up, boy? Patrick says, I can't stand him. Sorry. Talking about Joel Osteen. You know what? Like, it's about... I had a point before I said your name when you posted that, man. I was going to say something about not being able to stand him, but it's just about the information that comes through, man. I want to say thank you, Patrick. Patrick just ordered some of my daughter's slime, and I'm gonna give a quick plug. My daughter's now making slime and stuff. It's really big with the kids and stuff. So y'all want to go follow her on Instagram. It's Fluffy Wolf Slimes. Slimes on Instagram. She's selling slime, so go buy some for your kids. Yeah, shout out to Patrick for he was her first customer, so thanks, bro. It's, you know, looking at people and finding what we don't like about them or what we can't stand about them. Like we move to just a deeper revelation, or just to see what we can stand about them. Because I mean, people, you know, I think people say that about me. You know what I'm saying, or about anybody. Like, you know, there's people who tune into this podcast and they see the little all-seeing eye on my hat, and they love the wisdom, they love the information that comes through, but they just see something, or they see a symbol in the background or a video game or what, and they just see something that they don't like, or that they can't stand. Most people can't stand an eyeball because it represents the devil to them in their understanding. Whatever the case is. So, yeah, we talk about triggers, man. People get triggered. People have stuff that they can't understand, and I couldn't stand him for the longest time too. Not just Joel Osteen, but just, I'm telling you, man, being able to transcend and see everyone as an extension of yourself. I think that in spirituality we'll all eventually do that, but to really see what we can agree with the people and build upon that. The scriptures say, can two walk together unless they agree? And people use that to say, okay, we don't agree. You believe this, I believe that. We can't walk together. Bye. And they're done. They cut you off. But I read that, can two walk together lest they agree? Let's find something that we can agree on and walk together. Right? Great minds think alike in the comment section says, everyone has some truth, even if our minds are blocked to it. Yep. Everybody has something. I know what I was going to say, Patrick. Here was the point. When it comes to Joel Osteen, we used to call him a false prophet. Now people call me false prophet. So yeah, whatever. He wasn't the only ones we called a false prophet. Anybody, put it this way, anybody who taught stuff contrary to what we believed were false prophets. And I'm speaking about this in past tense, but there's a lot of people still there now. You teach the Bible a certain type of way, you teach religion, philosophy, politics, you're a false prophet, you're a heretic, these type of things. Anybody who taught it differently. And I used to get mad at like Joel Osteen. I used to get mad at Creflo Dollar or some of these people, Benny Hinn or whatever. But the scripture says, this is the deep part, the scripture says that the people having itching ears will find for themselves teachers that tell them what they want to hear. So it's not that like Benny Hinn or Creflo Dollar or Joel Osteen has all this power that they're able to deceive the masses because they're wicked people. No, these people are just presenting a message, and the audience are paying them money, are supporting them, sharing their content, going to their rallies or sermons or whatever, because they're telling them what they want to hear. So the scripture says that the people having itching ears will find for themselves teachers that tell them what they want to hear. Now that works with everything. The scripture also says that where your treasure is, your heart will be also. If you believe in something, you're going to support it. With your time, you're going to watch it. I mean, many people listening to this podcast, you find something of substance here. There's people who financially support the work I do. Your time, your money, your energy, your effort, your, occupying it with your mind and letting it into your thought life. There's stuff that you're entertaining because you bear witness with it and people will support it. So if you're looking at Creflo Dollar, if you're looking at some of these prosperity pimps, as you want to call them that, or quite the contrary, any other religion or something that you don't agree with, like those people are listening to these guys for a reason. So I don't think it's much of the teacher is the deceiver. I think that he has a message, and the people bear witness with it. I mean, that's what they want to hear. You know what I'm saying? They want to know how they can be rich. They want to know how they can get to heaven. You know what I'm saying? Whatever the case is, man, people will find for themselves teachers telling them what they want to hear. But like, it's not a deception thing. It's just part of nature. Like, most people wouldn't be listening to this if they didn't bear witness with something, unless they're just like chastising it and picking it apart and stuff. Or I hate when he does that, that kind of stuff. I mean, I know there's those people listening too, and it's okay to agree with some of it. And then I wish I can interject. That's the funniest part when I talk to people and they say, man, there's so many times you'll say something and I guess we'll respond and I want to interject, and they're even talking to their phone or whatever the case is, it's so funny. But hey, I've been there too. So yeah, Patrick, all it is, he says, I found you. That's it. You'll find the people that you resonate with. You'll find your tribe. You'll find the others, right? And if you're someone who is into mainstream religion and cookie cutter church, you're going to find that. And that's for you. And that's good. That's not I don't think that's a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, there's some bad stuff that I would disagree with. You know what I'm saying? But I think as a whole, I don't think these people are wicked as a whole. I think that they have a lot of them have a just notion about themselves, and their intentions are pure. And I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Ruach says, get in where you fit in. That's right. I want to thank everybody for supporting, man. It's awesome that you guys believe in my work. I have a dilemma, and this is a dilemma that I'm coming to as a podcaster and being one who juggles multiple things, especially with my album I just put out. That took up so much time of editing, trying to get everything perfect, having to re-record things, listen to it. So even though I was still doing podcasts, as far as editing them, making profile pictures, writing up the bios, mixing them down to the audio, ripping them and putting them online, I kind of fell behind with that. Also, I fell behind because we did a 100th episode, which was a little bit ahead of where it was supposed to be at. And then we did a look back episode. I wanted it just to be one, but it was two. There was two parts of the look back, and I'm just giving commentary on all the episodes up to episode 100. I did that, and so I pushed those ahead, so it ended up pushing stuff back. So I'm about a month behind on these podcasts, and I have several ahead of me. I would like to get caught up. It's going to cost me a little money just because I have to pay for space. So if anybody wants to donate, if you want to donate to that, helping me get caught up, I'm going to try to put out as many as I can so that I'm caught up. So I'm cool with it being a month behind as far as the episodes, but I'm not, because it's becoming a problem, and it's a learning experience. It's becoming a problem because I'm talking about news, and I'm talking about updates, and I'm talking about current events that now they're a month behind. You know what I'm saying? So if you're listening to this live, the live broadcast is going to feel different than the tape version, because some of the ones that are coming out, I'm talking about, hey, I have an upcoming album release party this weekend, and that was a month ago. You know what I'm saying? And so I want to get caught up. So if anybody wants to help me with those fees that I have to pay to kind of get caught up, you can click the donation button. You can go to paypal.me/TruthSeeker. So every little bit helps, and that's what I want to do. I'm gonna try to get caught up, and I'll try to be consistent in getting them all out. Everything that's already recorded, at least one a day until we get caught up. I got one ready to go. I did one yesterday, got one ready to go today, and I'm willing to do one tomorrow, but I've almost used up my allotted space for the month, and it's only the 15th. So anyway, that's where I'm at. If you guys want to help me, and even as I'm saying this, if this is behind, it's just as weird trying to keep up with the time. I just told you today's the 15th, and if I don't do it, it may be the 15th of the following month. So that's what I'm trying to do. I want to get caught up so that like once I get caught up, I'll stay on top of it, and every show will be out like the next day. Every show will be come out the next day. Oh wow. So yeah, thanks for all the support. I don't even like asking for support on anything else because I know you guys are already supporting me in so many ways through Patreon and stuff like that. But I just, you know what? The scripture says you have not because you ask not, and I put it out there just to let you guys know. Christy folks, I'm still debating whether or not I should encourage my new pastor to listen to the song I Am. It's perfect. You should let your new pastor listen to it. I could say this, it can't, I would say it can't hurt. It can hurt. It can't hurt if you really like it and that song ministers to you, and then you share it with your pastor who's like, hey, this isn't of God. Stay away from this. Because, that we get that a lot. Stay away from this. This is, blah, 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 blah. Everything I'm saying, everything I've been saying, how some people react to things that they disagree with. So that would be the only concern. I would, if you want to do it. But if that happens, don't get offended. Don't let it harden your heart. And I have to preference everything. So great minds think alike says, are you speaking of your intro song? No, the intro song is called The Inner Reaches of Outer Space. There's a song on the new album called I Am featuring The Voice, Spirit of Truth, and myself, and Saint Anthony. It's a really good song. Probably a lot of people say that's the best song on the new album. It's a really good song. I know that. So yeah, there we go. Look, as I'm live right now, all it is, Patrick just donated $10. He also bought my daughter slime. Thanks for the support, man. You have not because you ask not. That's universal. That's the law. That's for all of you guys. If there's something you want, ask God in your prayer closet. Also, ask the people around you. That's the one thing we get weird when it comes to money, man. People get weird when it comes to money. There's people who hate the fact. I'm going to tell you this straight up. I know I've mentioned it, but there's people who hate the fact that I get to do this for a living. Like, they're jealous, man. They get mad that I get to wake up and do this for a living because other people are paying me to do this. Like, other people, it's a lot of people giving a little, and it enables me to do this. They get mad. I will never understand that. I will never understand that bitterness. You know what I'm saying? That hater. You got a hater. You a hater, man. Let's face it. If that's you, man, you a hater. I got people who listen to this only to try to find stuff on me, to blog about, to gossip about. Look, I'm over your opinions of me because I'm over my opinions of me. I don't, like, my life is not my own. This has come through prayer and fasting, man. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And my question is, what are you supposed to be doing? If you're a hater, any of you who are getting mad at the success of another person, this is applicable to the Joel Osteen stuff. You don't have to like them, but why are you mad because this person is successful? I've told this story before, and it gets into some weird schizophrenic stuff. I ain't gonna lie. Like, a buddy of mine, he was a buddy. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but anyway, he had a thing at some local churches that put him out or something, and he used to go to a church, and all of a sudden there was a big revival that came to Mobile. So Mobile is known as the Bay of the Holy Spirit. There was a revival years ago that broke out here, and then there was another revival as of recent, a really big one. People from all over the world came here to experience revival. These pastors, rented out at the Civic Center, and people came from all over the world. And my friend's pastor, who he despised, his wife come down with some kind of condition. And I don't think she had something up with her legs or whatever, man. She couldn't really walk. She goes up for prayer and gets healed. And this is on live streaming on TV. It was on God TV, and it was on the computer, Facebook, YouTube, streaming on all that stuff. Like it was a big deal. My friend seen it happen live. This dude got mad and punched his computer screen and broke it. He got mad that these people he didn't like got healed, who were going through some stuff and their faith made them well. Punched his computer screen and broke his computer because somebody else got healed. That's insanity, man. You know, that's crazy. Like, that's insane for people, anybody getting mad for somebody else succeeding in life. And whether, I don't care where you are with that, where you are with, whether you believe in me or not. I mean, obviously there are more that are for me than are against me. That's a blessing. But I'll tell you this, like, my heart is like, this is for you too. Whatever you're supposed to be doing, it would be different if we kept it to ourselves. All I'm doing, and I say this over and over, all I'm doing on here is letting you guys know what works for me. This is working. This didn't work. Look, I did witchcraft, summoned demons, tried to talk to demons, tried to cut myself to make pacts with devils. Look, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do that. It's not working. Better yet, I'll show you what is working. Having faith in Christ, faith in a higher power, thinking about those things that are good, speaking blessings and not cursings, connected with people that believe in you. Go into meditation, find out what you're supposed to be doing, connect with your creator. Look, this is what we're doing. And all of the guests play a similar role in that, of you walking in your high calling, you doing what you were put here to do. And I understand where it comes from. I've sensed it before. It's people who are upset because they're not walking in their calling. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, what they were put here to do. It's all part of it. So with that being said, man, I just encourage you guys, you know what? Like, if you're just being a spectator, you're doing it wrong. I'll say that. And I'll be mad too. I'll be mad too. I would be mad too. But if you're not, you got to be taking strides, man. If you're just a spectator, if you're just listening to pastime, look, this ain't the podcast for you. There's a sports channel, you know what I'm saying? There's stuff that's talking about other interesting topics. There's more alien shows out there for you. But I really believe that this is to put you on your life's purpose and you to find your life's path and let you know how to obtain it. In all these spiritual encounters, it's all part of it. Every single one of them. It's all part of finding your calling, walking in your life path. We've had people on here they're UFO guys. A lot of people find contention with the UFO shows I do. But that's their life path. There's something to learn, man. Consistency, being persistent, and showing up. These laws are universal. There's within the Bible, your Bible, or lack of, there's so many universal truths and laws that show you that God is not a respecter of persons. And God is not a man that he should lie. These scriptures are evident, man. This is truth. If you stand for the truth, the Lord shall fight for thee. Like, I believe this stuff, and my life is a manifestation of it. And if you believe it, or something similar, not to believe it word for word and quote scriptures, you don't have to do that. You just get the principles, man. You get the principles and you run with them, and you do it, and you're consistent, and you show up, Even when they say go home, you say, no, I'm showing up. And when they say give up, show up. Even when you got another idea, don't be jumping around like from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. I'm telling you, I talk about it all the time. Creative people are doing that. You got so many awesome ideas. It doesn't mean you're supposed to pursue them all. You got to find out what you want your game plan, execute, do it, show up, tell people, prophesy, speak life, all that good stuff. And I'm telling you, God will bless it, man. God will bless it. As you bless others and you're trying to use your giftings and your abilities and your talents to help others, God will use his giftings, talents, and abilities to help you. I believe it with all of my heart, man. Thank you guys for supporting my work and what I do on this podcast and my music. It means the world to me. Literally, I couldn't do it without you guys. Thank you, Patrick, for your donation, man. It means a lot. I'm going to run through some of these comments right quick to see what we got. I hear you, Christy. I see Lee Kelly. He's going off about flat Earth. We haven't even mentioned anything about flat Earth on this episode, but he wants to make it known that he believes in flat Earth, and that's why I don't go down that path. Okay, I'm gonna cut it because you guys come in here and do this type of stuff. Like, I don't like that. That's insane. That's crazy. Anyway, NF says ENAF. He says, yo, my brother put me on your music recently, and I gotta say thank you for your content. Hey, thank you for supporting. Thank you for checking it out. If it blessed you, if it touched you, man, share it with somebody. You know what I'm saying? Tell somebody else about it. We can have the best music in the world, but if nobody hears it and it just sits on the shelf or this little small corner YouTube channel, you know what I'm saying? Nobody hears. So there's only so many hours in the day, and so I need you guys' help to promote and all that good stuff too. We're a family, man. Thank you guys. Patreon.com/TruthSeeker. There you can support my work. You can donate as well, whatever you want to do. And we're doing this together. If anybody needs me, you can go to my website, truthseeker.com. I did put there's a contact button that will actually message me directly. I don't usually have long debates with people through Messenger, but you can contact me there and let me know what's up. So with that, I'm going to say peace and shalom. I love each and every one of you guys. For those of you who are watching today, see, here's the thing I'm talking about. I want to speak on it, but I don't, because when this podcast comes out, it's going to be old news. Oh, we got to get this down. I'm going to get it down. This is my goal. For those of you watching today is what we're doing, a CE5 event. This is when we're going to go out stargazing tonight. We're going to meditate. Now, because it's the new moon, but now a lot of people, their forecast is calling for rain. I think mine is as well. Even if we don't get to stargaze tonight, we'll still meet for a meditation. I'm going to go live and at least lead for a meditation tonight, and maybe take some questions and stuff like that. But maybe do some prayers and stuff, offer up some prayers and stuff. So we're still gonna make something out of it, no matter what happens. And if we have to, we will just reschedule to the next new moon or the next night. It doesn't have to be the new moon. New moon's a great time, but these couple days that we have, it's the moon's going to be barely visible, so it'll let you see more stars. Lee Callie says, will you do a show on it? Curious. I did a show on it. I did a show with on flat Earth. We're talking about it being flat Earth. I did a show with Santos Bonacci, which I think when it comes to flat Earth, he's got to be one of the experts. So I had him on the show. He's a good friend. I give reason why I don't really, do a lot of flat Earth stuff on that podcast. But if you go listen to that, it's got a lot of views, man. I know it's a big subject. A lot of people are into it. I know it would get a lot of views and things like that. But I don't really dive into that too deep, and I talk about it on that episode. But yeah, we did a flat Earth episode. If you want to go check that out with Santos Bonacci. I will say this though. I will say that a friend of mine, because I haven't researched it a bunch, but I had a friend of mine come by here yesterday, and Ryan Rose, shout out to Ryan. He was talking about how they're part of the flat Earth stuff. There's this theory that Earth is water. I know you said there is no space. I've seen your comment, but he said that space is water, the outer space is water, and that's when you look at the stars, they look like they're flickering or pulsing, and if there are really lights out there, then that's why they look like they're pulsing, because space is water. And then he talks about, like, if you look at lights in the water, like if you look at a light in a swimming pool at the bottom, it looks like it's pulsing, and looks very similar. That's a theory I may look to explore, because I'm definitely into the space stuff and stargazing, and it would be really cool. And I will say, as above, so below, man. I definitely know, as above, so below. The beings that are in the ocean, the weird creatures that are like there's creatures down there we've yet to see, and there's reports of craft down there in the ocean and in the center of the earth and in those deep crevices and things, like caves and stuff. As above, so below. We look down into the water. It's like we're in like this in between. As we look up, it's like we're looking into the water as well. There's all types of beings out there in outer space, angelic forms that we would call them angels, but they take different forms and they look different. I've had the privilege of seeing a bunch of them through stargazing and through meditation and things. Like, I definitely believe in that. So that is something that I will take you up on, especially if you have somebody who can bring that to the table. Would be great. It wouldn't have to necessarily be a flat earth show, but we can do something about space being water. So if you have anybody you'd like to send my way, go ahead and do that. So with that, I'm going to say peace and shalom. I love each and every one of you guys. I will be back on tonight. And let me know too. I'm going to, I'm thinking about doing some more episodes, or not even episodes. I'm thinking about just going live a lot more on YouTube to just cover different topics. Like, I get a lot of questions. I try to formulate them here on the podcast, but if you guys want to like do more Q&A stuff or whatever the case is, wanted me to go in on a subject matter, I'm thinking about doing some more live stuff so I can do that. So let me know if you guys would like to see that happen, and it'd be fun. So with that, I'm gonna say peace and shalom again after the 4th time. Love you guys. Bye.
Your way is so much higher than mine, so much higher than mine. Your way is so much deeper than mine, so much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the Truth Seeker podcast, head over to truthseeker.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/truthseeker.